Chapter 14. Help! I was about 5 years old when I experienced one of the most unforgettable events of my life. I remember it vividly, as if it happened only yesterday. It was a bright, sunny Saturday in the middle of summer. That morning, I'd been watching a television program about life saving. The show featured instructors and participants inside an indoor pool, teaching techniques on how to rescue someone who was drowning. One thing the instructor said stuck with me. A drowning person can be dangerous because they're terrified. They'll do anything to survive, even if it means pulling their rescuer under. The key, the instructor explained, was to approach the drowning person from behind if possible. I didn't know it then, but that bit of advice would take root in my mind and matter much more than I could have ever imagined. Later that day, I left with my mom and her friend Ella Schneck to spend time at Sinbad's in Detroit, where Mom and Dad kept their boat docked. I was excited. Just being near the water, maybe even getting in some fishing, was enough to make the day special. When we arrived at the marina, Mom and Ella carried their things down to the boat, including a cooler with a few cold beers. I climbed on board, eager to find my fishing rod. But Mom quickly told me they had accidentally left it at home. She looked genuinely sorry, and to make up for it, she handed me a little toy boat tied to a string, something to play with from the dock. While she and Della settled on the back deck, chatting and sipping their beers, I knelt at the edge of the dock, floating the tiny boat in the water and guiding it gently along with the string. I was completely lost in the moment. Without thinking, I leaned out over the edge to grab it and fell headfirst into the water. Panic set in. I didn't know how to swim. I was flailing, sinking, rising, fighting to keep my head above water. I remember surfacing just long enough to see Mom and Della still on the deck, laughing, completely unaware of what was happening. I screamed, "Mom, help me!" Before slipping under again, the current slowly pulling me farther from the dock. I truly thought I was going to die. Then, through the chaos, I saw her, Mom, in the water, swimming toward me. As she neared, my mind flashed back to that life-saving show from earlier that morning. I remembered how the instructor said a drowning person could become a threat to their rescuer. Even at 5 years old, I made a decision. I won't fight her. I'll help her save me. When she reached me, she stretched out her hands and I grabbed hold. She had no formal training in life-saving, but with strength, determination, and maybe a little help from her terrified 5-year-old, she pulled me safely back to the dock. Soaking wet, heart pounding, I sat there on the deck, overwhelmed with relief. Mom had saved my life. And, as if that weren't enough, she even rescued my little toy boat. It's only with time that I've come to understand how extraordinary that day really was. There's something mysterious, almost divine, about the timing of that morning's television program. Why that show on that day? Why did that one lesson about drowning and rescue sink so deeply into the mind of a 5-year-old? Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was grace. What I know is this: that moment shaped something in me. It taught me that even in chaos, if we remain calm and willing to trust, help can come. It taught me that a mother's love is fierce and instinctive, and that you don't have to be trained to be brave. And perhaps most of all, it taught me that sometimes God speaks before we even know we're in trouble. That morning, God used a television screen to plant a seed in my mind, preparing me to survive the very fear I didn't yet know was coming. Yes, I was 5 years old when I nearly drowned, but I was also 5 years old when I learned how to trust, how to stay calm in crisis, and how to hold out my hands and say, without words, please, save me. And someone did.